This is the Ag Queen Podcast. This podcast explores the agriculture industry with the movers and shakers of those shaping it. Here's your host, Lori Boyer.
Hunter Alleman joins me for the show here today. He is the co-founder as well as the head of corporate services for Smooth Ag Solutions. Hunter, let's get started with our conversation. Tell us a little bit more about you and your background.
Yeah, for sure. So growing up, did a lot of ranch work with my dad. My family's been ranching in central New Mexico near Santa Fe for about 5 generations now. Kind of had the normal everyday experience. I didn't grow up on the ranch, would go and visit in the summer. And, around here in Miami, I did a lot of ranch work. Graduated high school, went to a little junior college. Didn't really like the school that much. So I went out to the oil fields in Midland to work. My granddad had been in the oil and gas industry for like 40 something years. So he had a lot of really good connections to get me started. And, that was really awesome, made a lot of money, but I knew that there was more to life and kind of got entrepreneurial and, started my consulting firm in late 2019 and, just kind of been working on M&A, mergers and acquisition deals and corporate finance stuff. Discovered River about 2.5 years ago. River is the founder of Smooth Ag. He had taken an old pickup truck and took the cab and the bed off and welded a little platform on it and put a cake feeder and made it fully autonomous. And when he posted this video on a Facebook group called Cowpuncher Swap Shop, I saw it and I immediately recognized the opportunity there. And, from day one, we just got really excited about the potential of what the Ranch Rover could do. And we started working, building a new website. He had a little website up to kind of explain what his project was. And we just revamped everything and started looking at it more commercially. And, here we are 2.5 years later, and we have a second machine on the ground and working on a third for Oklahoma State University. And so that's a little bit about me, just a traveling man. I love to hike, backpack, and, get my hands dirty doing some work. But, sometimes I like to use my mind too. So
I like that. Hunter, how did the Ranch Rover concept get started?
Yeah, so anybody that's been in a feed truck knows that it's a pretty simple job. For the most part, if you have a good set of cows that you have lined up, there's not a lot of health issues and things that you run into. So a lot of that time is, really spent driving. And when River graduated from Texas A&M, he worked for a construction HVAC company for a while doing sales, and he didn't like it that much, and he was ready to get out of College Station. So he went back home to his ranch in Haskell, Texas. And he was driving the feed truck one day, and he thought, if a Tesla can drive itself on the highway, then surely we can make a feed system that drives itself out in the pasture. And he just started working. The technology is readily available. I think a lot of people think that we're, in a sci-fi film or something when we explain what we're doing, but this technology exists and it's extremely cheap now. And, we just decided to put the pieces together and do something for the ranch. I think River, along with like his idea of just replacing the feed rover or feed truck on his ranch, the Ranch Rover was never really going to be anything more than just a way for him not to have to drive a feed truck ever again. And we started sitting down and doing the math, and we realized, hey, this is a bigger problem than we realized. And, our ranches aren't that big, but you start talking about, 50, 60,000 acre places, and all of a sudden their drive times are several hours a day. So, it just doesn't make sense, especially with all these labor conditions and regulations, especially in places like Colorado and California that are really strict on labor. Hiring ranch hands isn't so simple if you want to do it compliantly. And so that's kind of how we started to really dig into this, taking technology that's readily available for what would be like drones and things like that, and, applying it to this system and developing it a little bit more to make it work on the ranch.
Is it ran off of a phone application then?
Yeah, so it's completely autonomous, but when it comes to mission setting, we have an application in development, and then you can set up the routes on the computer. Okay. So part of our customer process when we onboard a new customer, what we do as we deliver the system out to the ranch, and we'll actually go and drive the feed routes that the rancher has, and that creates an accurate mapping system. So it has a little bit of redundancy. Not only are we using GPS, the satellite maps to make those routes, but we're also like double factoring it by actually physically driving those routes. So that way the rover just mimics that. And then it uses its eyes and sensors to actually coordinate with the real-time environment. So you think cows get in the way of the road, the rover can see those cows, stops, waits for the cows to move. Unlike a person, this comes up a lot. Well, what happens if there's a cow in the way? Generally speaking, if you're a person and the cow's in front of you, you're going to honk at it. And if it doesn't move, you're going to try to get out and move it. This is a robot, so it doesn't really have any time constraints, right? And this isn't a feed yard setting, so accuracy of getting out there, doesn't need to be within minutes, right? We're looking at, if a cow's sitting in the way, it's not going to sit there more than a minute or two, right, before it decides to move and the rover can start again. So it's more patient than what a person is, and that's how we kind of get around some of those challenges. And then, people ask us, well, what happens if it just starts driving and was going to run into a fence? Not only does it have eyes, it has ultrasonic sensors, kind of similar to what like your backup camera or whatever has on it, kind of beeps at you. The rover, once that beeping would theoretically start, the rover stops and tries to figure out what's going on, and then it'll send an alert to the rancher if there's like something really, kind of catastrophic, or let's say a tree fell down up in the mountains. No matter who you are, a robot or not, that tree is a new job that you have to do. And if you don't have that chainsaw in your truck, you're headed back to the house and you're going to pick that up. With this, you're getting that notification the tree fell, and you're able to just leave from the house or wherever you're doing any projects on your place.
What happens if you have a sick animal or one that maybe needs a different ration?
I guess really, we don't really have a solution for that. Particularly, we were really on the protein and mineral supplement side. So like right now we're feeding cake. We have identified a few like hopper systems that can do more of like a mixed ration, like a forage grade mix. And that's for ranchers that specifically feed that in a bunk. But for the most part, this is just cake supplement ration.
Okay, I gotcha. I'm looking at a picture of it right now here on my computer. How often do you change the design?
So the design that you see online is kind of what we would call like our prototype design, even though technically our prototype was the pickup truck that we deconstructed. We finalized the third design for our first customer. The engine's going to set inside. It's going to look a lot more appealing. When you look at our prototype model, it's all about ease, right? So being able to quickly repair, things like that, just having kind of everything available for you. For the customers, it's going to be much more rugged, I guess it would be a good word for it. Putting that engine below the platform so that way it's not subject to dust, heat, or rats. And so, yeah, I don't think we'll change the design really after this, unless it's for a specific purpose. Seems to be pretty robust. We're putting a, off-road Baja type suspension on it. We're moving from that gasoline motor that you see on the prototype to a diesel motor with more horsepower to increase our payload capacity. So I think we're kind of getting to that point where we're really we're right there with like what probably will last a really long time, and then the technology side of it, sensors and things like that are bolt on. What we kind of discussed with other ranchers is, they're most kind of concerned with like bringing a piece of technology like this in is what happens if it fails or crashes. What we've done is we've taken that and really kind of what we like to call kind of plug and chug, where, if there was some sort of technical issue that was related to the hardware, you could just pull that box out and we could exchange it for a new one and put a new computer in there. So the customer never has to worry about messing with the technology. And mechanically, we've tried to use, we use a Kohler diesel motor. So that way, anybody can do the preventative maintenance on it. We want people to do their own oil changes and things like that, but we're happy to do it for customers that would prefer it that way.
Gotcha. So it is out on the market. It is available for purchase?
Yes, it is. Right now, we are really kind of ramping up into our go-to-market strategy. Like I said, our first customer was Oklahoma State University. They reached out to us and they found an opportunity here to use it with some other branch-related technologies like water sensors and things like that. And kind of their goal is to research what a smart ranch would look like and how ranchers can use technology to improve their efficiency. And then we have a pretty robust pipeline of ranchers all across the country and as far as Argentina that are kind of getting ready to ramp up on this thing. I'm sure your next question will be how much it costs. The starting price is $55,000. If you go to a truck dealership today, you're looking at paying somewhere for that, for a brand new off the lot. We can't compete with used pickup trucks, but when you start to put apples to apples, looking at a ranch hand, looking at a pickup, you're starting to see those numbers really coalesce. And what we like to do is we give it a 5-year lifespan. The thing will last much longer than 5 years, but for math's sake, 5 years is a good way to do it. It costs about $10,000 a year for the truck and the hand, basically. So really makes that economic, engine really start to hum real well for ranchers that care about efficiency.
Anything else to add, Hunter?
I would say that one of the biggest challenges that we've run across with producers is really an apprehension to the technology. And I would say that we are not from the Bay Area. We come from the ranching background. This isn't some pie in the sky idea that was made by people that have never run cattle. And that's really important to understand, right? I mean, I think firstly, when ranchers see it, they really think about, hey, this is just some piece of technology about people that really don't know anything. And that's not the case. It's not going to replace the rancher. It's not going to replace a good cowboy. It's just going to augment everybody's capabilities and help, drive that data-driven decision-making that, everyone talks about in the corporate world, right? I mean, if you can have data on your weather, on your land, on your animals, and it's constantly being collected and it's not on a piece of paper, and you can easily pull up your app on your phone and see, hey, the average temperature this year was, 82 degrees or whatever it may be, the data points that you don't really collect nowadays. That's really going to make a big change, especially when we look at the generational kind of shift that is occurring. With the average rancher being around 58 years old today, their retirement is coming up very soon. And younger people, when you look at inheriting a ranch today, you have your, kind of experience, and that's really about it, right? You got wisdom from the past and what you kind of know about the place. You don't have a ton of data outside of your herd to really understand what a bad year is or what a good year is in terms of the climate and, how that affects your inputs and outputs. So that's really important to us is, when we talk to ranchers, having an opportunity not only for them to share like constructive criticism, because to us that is extremely important. We've heard about gates, we've heard about, detecting sick cattle, and we're like, embracing those challenges to improve the system, because at the end of the day, like, we need this to work, not only from a business perspective, but like in my family's place, we can't afford to hire more people. It's truly a family operation, and Rivers is kind of the same way. His parents work, my parents work, and that's for health insurance and things like that. And, a lot of things get left to the wayside out on the place, because in the wintertime you're supplementing and then you got to work, and it's just so much, right, that it makes it really challenging to run an operation successfully. And I think we're seeing that, a lot of places come up for sale, especially kind of in that mid-level ranch size, where it's just so difficult to make it work. This is really going to open a new door for a lot of people where, hey, during wintertime, it's not so challenging. You can kind of stay at home or work on those important projects like a new set of pins, or, that's what we really see, right? Is like you can focus on your infrastructure and your place a lot more than your herd. And, if you have a lined out herd, you shouldn't be spending a lot of time doctoring six.
Are most of your customers in the United States?
Yes. I think we're going to see a pretty big shift here in the coming year, looking at Australia, not for cattle, but for sheep. Cattle, they don't supplement feed in Australia, but sheep, they do have to worry about predation, and they do need supplement feed. So we see an opportunity there. And Brazil and Argentina as well, they run a lot larger places on an average than even in the United States in terms of total acreage. So we're going to be a global company, whether we like it or not. But at the end of the day, these are made in the USA, and we'll be excited to load them up on containers and ship them across the world. They, provide jobs here in Texas and, really stand for something that we believe in.
Hunter, thank you for your time today. It has been fun talking to you, and it has been fun getting to know more about your company. Once again, Hunter Alleman, my guest, he's a co-founder and head of corporate services with Smooth Ag Solutions. You can find him online at smoothag.com.
Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Ag Queen Podcast with your host, Lori Boyer.